na jioni hii ya leo tumejitayarisha ili tuweze kuendelea na masomo yetu ya guidance and counseling. Oh Lord, tunawakabidhi wale walimu wetu ambao watatuongoza jioni hii mikononi mwako, tukikuomba Baba utufungue akili zetu ili yote ambayo tutajadili katika kikao hiki cha jioni yawe ya manufaa kwetu na hata kwa wale ambao tunatarajia kusaidia huku kijijini na hasa wanafunzi wetu shuleni. Tunakuomba mwanzo mwema katikati, na tukifika tamati Mungu tutalishukuru na kulihimidi jina lako. Na ni katika jina la mwanao Yesu Kristu tumeomba na kuamini. Amen.
Amina. Amina. Thank you so much, Immaculate, for that prayer. Today, welcome to the class. Today, we meet again now for us to start the learning. Remember, I shared what will be expected from Module 1. And that is what the module we said we are starting with. And I remember telling you that this module will be purely theory, so it will be purely online. And it is good for us to see what is it that we are able to pick. Even when I say it is purely online, does not mean that when we meet, we are not going to still go back when it is face-to-face. We are still not, it doesn't mean we will not go back and remind ourselves of where we came from. Today, my ICT expert is Samuel Munuve. Munuve, tusalimu tafadhali, hatutaki kukuacha ukasahau kuwa uko class. Munuve, tusalimu.
Good evening, participants. I'm Samuel Munuve from Kenya ICT department. Thank you,
Thank you. Thank you, Sam. It is good for you to know the group we are having here, a group that is it is a mixture. Tuko wengi na tumetoka sehemu mbalimbali. But one thing that has brought us together is that we want to gain skills of knowing ourselves, because we have one thing we are telling ourselves: you only know yourself, and you can only give me what you have. So today is the start of the learning itself, and we'll be looking at the introduction to psychology, and we'll be asking ourselves, what is psychology? Even before I start sharing the slides, we're looking at psychology as the mother of guidance and counseling, psychological counseling, educational psychology, social psychology, all those. We look at it as the mother, like this is where it came from. It emanated from philosophy, we came to psychology. And then after psychology, what are the other branches that came up and they had something to talk about? We will divide the introduction into two, as you've seen the timetable saying. We'll divide it into two. We'll do half today, half tomorrow. Remember we said, our work is not cast on stone. So we are starting. Does not mean that we have to tie ourselves to the number of slides that we have. I know any one of you here can use 1 or 2 slides. Grace can use 20 or 40 slides, depending on what is there. By the end of the day, it is about the learning. And we're also asking ourselves, why do we want to know something about psychology? Why would I want to understand psychology? And as I had said, we need to get a base of where are we coming from. Because all the other branches that we work with that have a relationship with psychology emanated from the whole body of psychology. And so it is good for you and I to understand what psychology is all about. Yesterday, I also shared that I'm going to do the introduction to psychology and the introduction to guidance and counseling. Then we'll bring other people in to continue from there. And we were told by Aquila and Elvis yesterday that while they'll be checking on how we are getting to the virtual campus, and they also told us they will give us all the support that we need. So feel supported and don't feel lost. So I'll share the slides. I intend to end the class at 7. It's supposed to be 7:30. I intend to end at 7, so that if there's something we want to ask Sam Munuve, we give him a chance to tell us something. And also give ourselves time. It is evening after work. There are a few things we need to do. There are a few of us who need to cook. There are a few of us who need to serve. There's also a few of us who need to go back to school and check on the learners. So we cannot forget that. So it's good to know that even with all that, there is what we are required to do in our daily today, in our day-to-day work. We cannot assume that one is not there. So we'll be doing the introduction to psychology. And in this introduction, we have started with a picture there. What does this picture depict to you? Any one of us? Hey, picture, what does it tell you? What does it tell you? Anyone give us a guess? Just raise up your hand and Sam will allow you to talk. Kelvin Apio. Yes, Kelvin.
Brain.
It's a brain.
Okay, according to Kelvin, this is a depiction of the brain. So
Yeah.
Kelvin, those mute. Kelvin, if
Yes.
it is a depiction of the brain, and we are using it in the introduction to psychology, what do you deduce from that?
I think this introduction to psychology will involve things to do with the brain, the way we think, and how our thinking affects our behavior and affects our habits, and also how we
Thank you.
socialize with people. Yeah.
Thank you, Kelvin. Thank you so much. That's all what it means. It's about the mind. It's about the brain. It's about how we use that brain to explain any other thing that happens to us in our lives. It talks, when you look at it, it shows you so many neurons. And what do they mean? Once we receive any information in our brain, how do we interpret that information so that it makes us move? And when you're looking at that, it's like you're telling ourselves that psychology has something to do with the brain, has something to do with the mind, etc., etc. And so from our introduction, we are told that psychology is an offspring of philosophy. It came from philosophy, had something from philosophy, and comes from a Greek word, psyche. And psyche, according to the Greeks, it meant the soul. And then logos. And logos meant what? Study of. So to us it was, we can say that it was a study of the soul. That one it is now. When we look at it from a philosophy, it means it is a study of the soul. So even when it emerged, these are some of the things that people are looking at. It is like when you think about psychology, according to the Greeks, according to philosophy, it meant that it was a study of the mind. And don't forget, this is about the origin. It's about where it started from. It is about where it came from. And so it has evolved from what we are looking at as the study of the soul. It has kept on evolving. Because if I ask you, what is the soul? And even when one passes on, we say, may his or her soul rest in peace. What is the soul? And so it has evolved so that we are able to grasp the meaning behind all this. How has it evolved? It is started from the philosophy that talked about study of the soul. Came to what we were able to understand better, the study of the mind. And I think that is what Kelvin was trying to tell us. It's about the study of the mind. And from the study of the mind, it keeps on evolving. It becomes the study of conscious experiences. When you remember the picture we were talking about, the picture we are saying what it depicts. We were saying that picture we saw was showing us the brain. And when Kelvin was explaining further, he was telling us it is about how we look at things, how we experience them, and then the overt behavior, the open behavior that we exhibit. So what are we telling ourselves? It has evolved from what philosophy was looking at as the study of the soul. Then it came to the study of the mind. And when you think about the study of the mind, for you and I, when you think about the mind, we know it is what happens in our brain. What is it that we tell ourselves in our brain? And whatever we tell ourselves, we look at it think about it and we become conscious of those experiences. Whatever you're going through, whatever is happening around you, you become conscious of that experience. But now someone like me looking at you, I'm not able to see the mind. I'm not able to touch the mind so that I say this is what is in your mind. I'm also not able to touch your conscious experience because it is you who is feeling it. So what happens is I can only learn of all these other things through the open behavior that you show. So when you look at this evolution, you can tell what it is all about. It is about what is consciously happening with you, that for a person to know what's happening with you, they can only study through your overt behavior. It's about what we can see. And now we attribute. We see you behaving, we see you laughing. And we know that consciously you're experiencing something that's making you happy. We see you crying. We look at that behavior. We tell ourselves, somehow in your conscious experience, you're experiencing either sadness, depending on what is happening, or depending on the occasion, or you are happy. There are people who show their happiness by crying. It all depends on the environment, and the person who has that conscious experience is the one who shows us the open behavior that we look at. So colleagues, with those so many words, what are you saying? You're saying, and this has already come out from you. Psychology is the study of the human and animal behavior. So you study the behavior of humans and animals. It also talks about how we apply this behavior to human problems. So as a science, psychology as a science, we look at the behavior of the person. And this behavior, if we still go back where we were, what does this behavior do to us? This behavior gives us what one is experiencing in their conscience. So we still be going back to the evolution. And so it is a science of human behavior. What are we telling ourselves? Behavior is what we can see. We are talking about what we can see. And then we attribute what we are seeing, what we think is your conscious experience. So it gives us a better understanding and control of behavior of the organism as a whole. So when you look at the two, the definition by Walter Boas and the definition by William McDougall, you can see we are talking about the same thing. It's about a science. It's about understanding behavior. It's about understanding the whole organism. And I think in short, we're saying study of the human animal behavior. What we see is what someone is experiencing. And that's why we have called it the conscious experience. This conscious experience, how do we get it? It is what is happening in someone's mind. How are they experiencing it? What is happening in the mind? How are they experiencing it? So that now we can attribute it to the behavior that we are seeing. There are so many definitions of psychology. But in all these, we'll be looking at it and telling ourselves, it's about the science of the study of the human behavior. We have said where the behavior is coming from. We can only see a behavior, and then that behavior tells us the person is experiencing what is happening around them consciously this way. Where is this conscious experiences happening? In the brain. What are the messages that are being sent in your mind that you are able to look at them? And so when you look at all this, you'll see all of these and many more. Even when you read more, you'll find all this about it being a science. So a trained psychologist now becomes a scientist. And also, good to remember, for psychology to be a study, it means that scientific methods are used. Scientific investigation can be done in any aspect of psychology. And mostly what will answer this? The open behavior that we see. It is about the open behavior that you see. And so when you look at Moon and you look at Jackson, you'll see that is all what they are talking about. And so in all this that you'll be studying, even when we finish with the introduction to psychology, we will see that most of the work we'll be doing will be looking at the conscious, what is the conscious experience of the person and the open behavior that one is exhibiting. So that now we attribute something to the behavior. You know, you look at the behavior, you attribute to what is happening with someone. And as a science, we have said it can be investigated scientifically. And you already know to do an investigation or to do a study. We know you do a study that can be replicated, a study that has validity, a study that is reliable. And so that is why we call psychology a science. And mostly the subject of psychology can be discussed in two areas, and that is the limits of its operations and applications. How can we apply psychology in whatever we do? What are its operations? What are the applications? And what are the limits? What is it that we can use and we do not attribute it to psychology? Again, we also tie ourselves to the branches and these topics and subject matter and what it deals with. We also look at the branches of psychology and we'll see what is it? What are the parts of psychology that one can take? And there are many, and that will be the lesson for tomorrow. This is a repeat in the scope of psychology, that it studies, describes, and explains the behavior of living organisms. It is about the living organisms. What is it that, what are the living organisms experiencing? What are the life experiences that one is going through? Whether we're looking at things through the skills that one has been able to get, or through the knowledge that one has been able to get, or through the affective domain. Those are the things that we'll be looking at, the everyday experiences that one goes through. Whether cognitive, if it's cognitive, we know it's all about the skills. What is it that you can do? Whether it's cognitive, it's about the knowledge. What is the knowledge that one has? How can we interpret the experiences of other people? Is it affective? And when we talk about affective, it's about how is it affecting us emotionally? What is it that we are talking about? Is it implicit or explicit? Is it something that is open for all of us to see? Or is it something that is innate, hidden in someone? We cannot see it. Is it conscious? Or is it unconscious? Is it subconscious? All that is what we will be looking at as life activities and experiences of the organism. So psychology looks at the organism through all these experiences that they have had, whether it's something open, something hidden, something in our conscious, something in our subconscious. And when we delve deeper, we will see more of these of the conscious, unconscious, and subconscious behavior. It does not only study human behavior, but also your experiences. It's not just about the behavior. It also studies human experiences and all other forms of communication. So for us as psychologists, we will be looking at it as what are the experiences the human has gone through? These experiences, how have they affected the person? How is the communication? Again, it's all about the living creatures. Does not matter the species, the case, the color, the age, sex, mental or physical state. It's about the whole person. And we look at this when we'll be looking at the growth of psychology. We will be looking at some of the proponents of psychology, like someone like Gestalt psychology that talks about the whole person, not about parts and pieces of the person, but the whole person. It also looks at animals. For us now, we look at the human being as an animal, insects, birds, plants, and you can see there's a lot of areas where psychology can be applied or can be used. So when it comes to behavior, what will we be looking at? What is the meaning of behavior according to psychology? One, cognitive activities, about the skills, about the do. What is it that you're doing? What are the skills that you're gaining? What is it that you're doing? We also look at the cognitive activities, the knowledge that one has, then the affective activities. So it is like, what are we saying? When it comes to cognitive activities, what is it that I know? What is the knowledge that is with me? How do I apply this knowledge? When I'm applying this knowledge, we are talking about the cognitive activities that are going on. I will say this again. We start the cognitive activities. It's about what the knowledge I have about anything. What do I know about something? And if I have this knowledge, what are the activities that I'm doing? How am I applying it? What are the skills that I have that I'm able to apply? And then what are my feelings about it? And the three of them, they end up bringing us behavior. Because I think in my mind, the knowledge that I have is in my mind. I apply it in the activities that I am doing. As I apply it, what are my feelings? And now, what is it that I'm telling myself? And what I'm telling myself is now what will result to the behavior that one can see. And so before we go further from this area, I will be reminding ourselves that when we are at this level, what can make me want to know more about a person? It's the behavior they're exhibiting, because what we see is the behavior. And so there are things that we're thinking about in our minds. There are some activities that we are doing. There are some feelings that we have. Eventually, the behavior that we exhibit is a fruit of what we know, how we are applying what we know, and how our feelings are coming in what we know, and it results in behavior. And that is why some psychologists will keep on telling us that it is not about what happens to you. It is about what your mind is telling you, how you want to apply it, how it affects you, then it comes out in our behavior. And all this helps us understand psychology more. It helps us understand psychology more. Remember, it is the study of or it is the science of human and animal behavior. So what me and you are able to read is the behavior that is being exhibited. We continue, and we look at the history or the origin of the science of psychology, and we will and we will not delve more into this origin, but you read further, and as you read more, you will be able to see more. You'll be able to see more of this as we continue reading. We'll be able to see more of what we are talking about from a point of view of how psychology has developed. And let's retaliate where I started from. Why are we doing all this? It's because we want to understand the origin of the course we are taking, the course of guidance and counseling. How did it come about? So that we will be telling ourselves, it is a branch of psychology. And psychology has grown this far. This is how it has developed, and this is how we are able to move move on. Give us Sorry for that. I have a small hitch. I think I had pinned my work, and that is why you could not hear me at a certain time. I'll share again. Sorry for that. I needed to add something somewhere, and in the process I lost myself. A minute. Okay. Oh, sorry for that. I had a small issue with my laptop. It had decided to hang, but now it may unhang. So I'm back. Let me come back to class.
Welcome back, Daktari.
Yeah, thank you, Munuve. I hope now you can see where I am. You can. I am sorry for that small hitch. So I was saying that we got to look at the history of psychology, how it has grown, and it has grown from for a long time. It has from philosophy, physiology. It has kept on growing and becoming something separate as an area of study. And you're told that it started in 1879. The years are not important. It's good to know that. The father of psychology is known as Wilhelm Wundt, and that is the person who started this in Germany. And he was the first person to measure human behavior accurately. So it's good for us to know about this growth, so that now we see from this point of view of growth, what can we borrow? And in this school of psychology, we will not study very many people in the growth. We will look at structuralism as the first school of thought that brought about psychology. And what will we be asking ourselves, you and I? We will be asking ourselves, if structuralism was there, what did it bring? Why did it come to an end? What can we borrow from that one, from that point of view? And then if it comes to Gestalt psychology, where did it emanate from? Why did it come in? What was it talking about? For me as a counselor, what do I borrow from Gestalt psychology? If it is functionalism, the same thing. Where did it emanate from? Then what do we borrow from there? Because even if a school of thought was there, and then it is no longer being used, what is it that we can pick from there? Because nothing dies. It's only that it grows to another level, and it is we are left with a new thing that borrows a lot from what was there. If it is behaviorism, what was there? If it is psychoanalysis, what was there? So that is the gist of what we are going to look at today, and tell ourselves if it was a part of our psychology, if it was where psychology came from, what have we been able to borrow from that area? And so when we look at structuralism, we are told it is the oldest school of thought that brought about psychology. And as we said, the father of psychology is William Woodit, and he is the one who brought up the first school of thought. And we are told that he did this in Germany in the year 1879, and whatever he focused on, one of his students was Edward Titchener, also came up with more from what has been said. He is the one who made it more popular than it was. And when you look at this from William Woodit, what is it that he was looking at? He was looking at the structure of the mind, and in all this, he was breaking it into elements. And in those elements, he was saying that is what makes up the mind of a person. That mind of a person is made up of elements. These small elements are what make up what a person is. So it's like they were looking at the structure of the person. And they were looking at the components or elements as the compounds that make what a person is all about. And what were the core concepts? The core concept of structuralism was they focused more on introspection. What is introspection? This being the first school of thought that was looking at introspection, they looked at an organism, not the organism of study, as something that needed to be studied. And in this, the study was the organism to look at what is happening around them and report it objectively as it happened. So the main area of structuralism that they worked on was introspection. And in this introspection, the organism was supposed to report what has happened to them objectively so that it can be recorded. And you know that when you talk about something happening to you and you've got to report it objectively, you know, as a human being, it becomes very difficult to be objective when something has happened to you. Because with it is not very easy to report your conscious experiences and how you responded to the stimuli, and doing it objectively. And so this is how, when it started, this is how they were able to identify the basic mental processes through introspection. When they do. And so to them, it is like the mind is made up of elements. Those are the sensations, the images, the affections. And when they were looking at all these, they wanted someone to look at to report what they have seen objectively. And so you can only study this when you are in an area that is, when you're doing this experiment in an area that is controlled, in an environment that is controlled, so that the person is able to report whatever happened to them objectively without bringing in anything in. And so this is a part of what made structuralism come to an end, or people stopped using structuralism. One of the things that made it come to an end was, one, it only narrowed down to people or to organisms that could speak. So what does it mean? It means if I am not gifted in speech, I could not have been, and I could not have been used in the learning. If you cannot verbalize what happened to you. The other one was, if you're dealing with children and they are not verbal, they are not able to tell you what is happening. They will not talk about it. Again, if you're dealing with people who are able differently, you'll not be able to see, they'll not be able to talk about what is happening with them. And so it also fell short, because as much as you'd want to have to report your experiences, your conscious experiences objectively, you are human. And subjectivity will come in because it happened to you, not to any other person. And so the subjectivity made it narrow, because you want me to report objectively, it happened to me. So subjectivity comes in, and so you find that it narrows the focus of what one wanted to talk about. And that is the reason as to why structuralism came to an end. Now, what do we respect from this? One, it is the origin of psychology. Two, as a therapist, when you're doing, when you're using this one in therapy, it has an area where you want someone to report what happened to them as objectively as they can. So introspection is not dead. It is something that you can use, but then it came to an end and it was replaced by functionalism. And so now functionalism came in. It built more on what structuralism had talked about, but at the same time, expanded further and moved from the area of saying that the human mind is divided into elements. And so they wanted to bring, to remove the story of the elements being there. And the founder of this was John Dewey, William James, Harvey, etc. Those are the people who brought it. And they focused more on real life problems. What is happening to you, on the real life problems, and what is happening to the person. And so what did they concentrate on? They concentrated more on the function of the human mind, as opposed to William Woodit, who talked about the structure of the mind. So from structuralism, that's the structure of the mind divided into elements. So functionalism now wanted to look more at what are the functions of the person of the person at a particular time. They wanted to break down and see how is one able to function, how the organism is also able to adapt, and also what are from the behavior of the organism. What is it? How is the environment? How is this organism able to adapt to the challenges of the environment? And so they also believed that you cannot, mental processes of a human being or of an organism cannot be understood, in isolation. They cannot be understood in isolation. And so they thought the function will tell you, this is what one is experiencing. How are they functioning in the world? How are they functioning in their day-to-day activity? And so they aimed at studying the mind fully, study the person fully, and see how are they able to function despite what is happening with them in the society. And when you look at all these, we can borrow a lot from there, because we can be talking about what is the person going through. Even in education, we can be asking ourselves progressively, how is someone functioning when we look at the challenges that they are facing? When we can also look at the behavior of the person. As we are moving on, how is this behavior affecting the function of the person? It has been used widely. Many people are still, it is still being used, but again, there's those who say there's a lot of vagueness in it, and they're wondering, does it include every other person? Are we able to be specific in all these? And again, it is, when we talk about functionalism, it is also overshadowed by behaviorism. So it is like more, we are observing more about behavior and putting a lot of emphasis on the behavior of the person. So it's good to look at all this and see how it has influenced our work, or the work that we need to do, or what we are looking at. But it's good to know functionalism marked a turning point in psychology, because they were emphasizing on the function of the mental processes and behavior, rather than the structure of the mind. So it now moved us from the structure and brought us to how one person is functioning in whatever they are doing. After it gained a lot of popularity, it was overshadowed by the other schools of thought that came about. It was overshadowed, and we brought a few other things. The other schools of thought came up, and they were different from functionalism. And one of them is Gestalt psychology. It was also founded in Germany. And you know, when we were looking at this, the Gestalt psychology was arguing that the structuralists were wrong in thinking of the mind. They were only thinking of the mind being made up of elements. Gestalt psychology is all about the whole person. So they're also looking at the whole. They didn't want to look at elements. They don't want to look at parts of the mind. They wanted to look at the organism as a full person, a whole person, a whole organism. And you know that as it was happening, it wanted to bring a lot of things about the many parts that bring up the whole. It is all about those parts that bring up the whole, and so they wanted to study the whole person. And also, they also brought on something about the person, and they believed that people are able to separate objects and they relate to them differently. So it is, you cannot just look at one structure, you look at the whole person. And they also said that the mind is able to create a whole being. The mind is able to create a whole being, a whole scenario from all the activities and relationships that happen with the person. And so it can be used in very many ways, and we as a psychologist, we can use it in therapy by believing that the whole, the organism you're looking at, the person you're talking to, the person you're working with is made up of very many other elements. You can only understand them when you look at the whole element, when you look at the whole person. And so even in our work, we will be looking at the whole person and the things that make the person behave the way the persons behave the way they behave. And so we are saying that it gives us a perspective of how humans interact with their environment. The whole person, how do they interact with their environment? So for you and I, we look at our area of work. How are you as a person interacting with your whole environment? Are you able to be the very person who is in school, who is at home, so that we can look at all the elements around the environment and what they mean to you as a person? Behaviorism, that is the other school of thought. In fact, when you look at this, as I told you, it is just about theories. Just go read, enjoy. In fact, they're like a story. It's like you're reading a story. Tell yourself the story. It's in the process of telling yourself the story, it gives you the narrative of where we are and why psychology is psychology, where it came from, and where we are starting with the psychology as part of our beginning. Behavior, we won't even ask ourselves what behavior is all about. Kila mtu anajua behavior ni nini. So we not ask ourselves about behavior or what it is. And you know it's all about what is observable. When it comes to behavior, it is all about what is observable. What can we see? What are we able to see from your behavior? And this one we use it so much as teachers, because we use the work of this founder, that is John Watson, who is the founder of behaviorism, and he has talked a lot. He rejected introspection and said the mind is only not made up of elements. He said that we can only tell what one is going through as we look at the behavior they are exhibiting. That because they were not about the structure, they were not about the function, they were about the whole behavior. And they believed that the exhibited behavior comes first. And I'm also a strong believer in behaviorism, that your behavior, whatever behavior you're exhibiting, has another meaning. It is telling where you know, that is the open thing. That is what I can see. And it is me to know what are the attributes I give to this behavior. And some of the core principles of behaviorism is about what we already talked about, is about the observable behavior. And that is why, even when we are studying psychology or any other part of psychology, we really focus on the behavior that is being exhibited. Even for you and I as teachers, when you're with our learners, we look at the open behavior. We only draw meaning from the behavior that is being exhibited. It is from this behavior that we tell ourselves, is something happening with the learner. Again, behaviorists also believe that environment shapes behavior. Environment shapes behavior. And so when we look at what is happening, it depends on the environment around you. For me as a teacher, what is the environment around me? What is the behavior exhibit? For the learners, what is their environment of learning? What behaviors are being exhibited? And you know, behavior is all about the environment we are in. They also talk about how we respond to what is around us. It is about how we respond. And so when we look at behaviorism as a part of what brought about the growth of psychology, we can say that many of the things that we attribute to a certain behavior lead us to understand where the person is coming from. And that is why we always say many of the things that happen to us, even for you and I as human beings, it is not about what someone has told you. Someone tells you this is what they think about you. And so it is not about that person. It's about what you have heard, You have taken it to your mind. Your conscious brain has worked on it. You have told yourself all the things you wanted to tell yourself. All of us can learn this from behavior. And that's why it is different for every other person. You might hear something and you say, it is not about me. It's about the person talking. So it does not affect you. You move on. Another person hears something and they say, this is someone looking at me and thinking about me negatively. The behavior will tell. And so, according to John B. Watson, our behavior tells a lot that of what is happening, because it is open and people can see what is there. Again, from behaviorism, and this one we have used it so many times. I think it is about learning through conditioning. And it is, this one is in the school of thought of behaviorism, where they look at learning through conditioning, where we have the classical conditioning and the operant, or operant is also instrumental conditioning. And we have used this many times, and we have heard the story about the Pavlov dogs. We also do more in this now when we come to counseling, because we borrow a lot from this school of thought of behaviorism. We will want to see more and see how do we look at these, how do we look at the learning theories? How do we look at conditioning? How do we also look at classical conditioning? How also do we look at operant conditioning? And you know, classical is about learning through association, and operant is about learning through rewards and punishment. How do we put a lot of emphasis on this? Because when it reaches the level of talking about discipline, we will want to see how are we able to use operant conditioning as reinforcement in either discouraging a behavior or encouraging a behavior. So you'll see that we'll be borrowing a lot from this, and we will be seeing what is it that we want. For you to learn more in this area, please look at the work of Ivan Pavlov in classical conditioning. Remember the story of the dog, the bell, and the food. Also look at operant conditioning that was brought about by B.F. Skinner, who talked a lot about how we can strengthen or weaken a behavior. Also look at the law of effect, and you see a lot about the causal effect. What causes this? What is the effect? That is the law of Edward Thorndike, and you'll see a lot that he talks about the behavior that by satisfying consequences and how this behavior can recur. You look at all this and you'll see we can apply this in a lot of the work that we do. But for now, we are just like going to look at the schools of thought that brought about psychology. You also see there's a lot that we use. This one, we use it a lot in education. You use it a lot in education, and even in therapy, you'll see that we'll be using a lot of these. What is it that we do? What does behavior mean? Even you look at yourself and your behavior and see what are the attributes of that behavior have come from your conscience or your subconscious. So last but not least, there are many, but we cannot go through all of them. We just want to give ourselves a glimpse of psychology. It is psychoanalysis. In some books, you'll find it as psychodynamic therapy, others the psychodynamic theory, and we will also see a lot of this in the introduction to counseling, in adolescence growth. We will see it we'll go meeting it in very many areas of our study. So check a lot about psychoanalysis. It is very interesting. One of the schools of thought that we will look at and we'll keep on saying, "Apana, this is not true, this is not there." You see a lot of that. Just look at that, read it more, tell yourself in the growth of psychology. Well, how does psychoanalysis come in? And remember, we are told that it was developed by Sigmund Freud, a Frenchman, in the late 19th century and 20th century. And he talked a lot about the role of the unconscious mind in shaping our feelings, our thoughts, our behaviors. The theory has talked a lot about the person and the person in their early years, whereby Sigmund Freud believes whatever you are, even in adulthood, emanated from what you went through from year 1, from birth to year 7. And he says that creates the whole human being. And so we will read more, we will see more about it when it comes now to counseling. We will see more of how we can apply the psychoanalysis, psychology in what we are doing. And he believed that most of what happened in our early childhood, the experiences we had in our early childhood, are the ones that bring the internal conflict that we have because of the repressed desires of the child. But he also says this child grows depending on what they were given between 0 to 7 years. So interesting history. It also, if you look at it keenly, you also start asking yourself, is it true? Is this what forms what I am up to where I am at this time? In that history, you'll see how Sigmund Freud started, how his work was also continued by his daughter, Anna Freud, and what is it that they were talking about? And why do we need to borrow something from this? Because there's a lot that we can borrow from Sigmund Freud, and many a times we want to see what is it. Some of the core things, I think I've already mentioned them. Some of the core things that is talked about is the unconscious mind, where he proposed that there are 3 levels of consciousness, that in every other person, all of us, there are 3 levels of consciousness. We have the conscious mind, what we are aware of. Because what you are aware of is what you're conscious about. And Sigmund Freud talked a lot about it. He also talked about the preconsciousness of the mind. That is something we can recall. The preconscious mind, the preconscious feelings that we have in the mind, we can recall them. You only need something to remind you, and you can recall it. He also talks about the unconscious mind, and this he says they are the repressed memories, desires, behavior. And he says most of these, because it was formed in the between 0 to 7 years, they are the things that hurt us, we repressed them. We removed them from the mind. We didn't want to see them. And so they are unconscious. But to him, he says, they can only be seen through our actions. And so you question the action, so that you want to know, what is this that they repress? He has also talked a lot about the structure of personality. So even when you'll be doing the topic of personality, we will refer so much to Sigmund Freud. We'll be looking at what does he talk about when he talks about the structure of the personality. And this is why he gives us the 3 structures of personality according to his theory. So we'll be looking at the ID or id, the ego, and the superego. And all of them, he attributes them to the 7 years, the early 7 years of birth. And he wants to tell us, what is it that happened to you? And he says we'll see a lot about the ID, that he says it works on pleasure principle. It is all about things that are pleasurable. You know, there's I want, it demands. And then the ego comes in, and the ego is the rational part that says no, not happening. It is the real you. It is the core of the person. And the superego is the moral conscious. And there's a fight between the id, the moral conscious, the id, the superego, and now the ego comes. We'll see more about it. Read more, it's very interesting. And another core principle he came up with is the defense mechanisms. And he says the defense mechanisms, how do they come about? You've done something. Someone talks about it. You're not comfortable with it. What happens? You throw it at the back. You don't want it at the forefront of your mind. And if it is out there, you defend yourself. And according to Sigmund Freud, he says that the ego, when the ego is injured, the ego is you, the core, the person. When the person is injured, it resorts to defense mechanisms. So you find you're doing your work, you're not able to go to class today. The ego feels, no, this is wrong. This is not what I should have done. But because it got to take care of itself, it says, I didn't go to class. I think I had given them enough work. That's a defense, given them enough work. Or no, like now results are out, and I know we are discussing the results for Form 4. And the schools are, our principals are keen, and they want to know, why has your mean grade gone down? Is it that you're not learning? And what does the ego tell you? It's being injured. Someone is doubting your ability. And so you resort to defense mechanisms. You know the class was bad. You know the students that we had. You know the entry behavior of those learners. And you know, nobody wants to know. The ego does not want to admit what has happened. So the defense mechanisms come in. You look at them. There are many. We will look at them when you're looking at counseling as a whole, and we'll deal more on that. The other core that came from psychoanalysis is the psychosocial development. And we will see what happens during the psychosexual development. Because when you look at Sigmund Freud, it's like he put the whole person as an aspect of their sexuality. So we look at what he talks about when he talks about 0 to 1 year until he reaches the age of 7 years. And from there now, he says the cycle repeats itself. We will see more when it reaches that level, and we'll see what has he talked about in that. And so when we are using this in therapy, or when you're using it as counselors, when you're using it as psychologists, we'll be looking at what is it that they would want, the psychoanalytic therapy, what does it talk about? And to it, it's about to bring what we have repressed, the unconscious, bring it to the conscious awareness so that we understand ourselves and we resolve it. And we will see how we are going to use it. And he has given many ways of how we can use this theory. What are we talking about? This is a part of the growth of psychology. It's part of the growth of psychology, and it's telling us a lot about what we need to know about psychology. Because the main reason here is that psychoanalysis will explore the unconscious mind, our early experiences as children, as we were growing up, the internal conflicts that we have, the conflicts that you and I have. We'll be looking at all this, and we'll be telling ourselves, despite all this, it has brought a lot of evolution in psychology. It's very significant. We are not saying that we will use it fully, and it's the only thing that we use it, but it has, a lot of it has been done in the learning. And so, colleagues, we are now almost coming to closure of what we had started with. We are telling ourselves that all these major landmarks in the development of psychology, they mean a lot. So what I've put there are just people who have talked about it, and a few things, just a summary of what some of the people who have done a lot in the growth of psychology. And it's not even updated. It started from 1879, Naimesoga mpaka until the year 2000, and there's still a lot there's a lot of growth that has happened in psychology. We will, as we keep on learning more, we will keep on getting different things in the growth of psychology. So mine is just to put a bit of emphasis on us researching more, understanding more, so that when we come to do the counseling itself, we will have understood where it's coming from and the growth of psychology to a certain level to where it's supposed to be. And so psychology is wide. And so you and I, who have already gained an interest in the guidance and counseling, there are so many other areas that we can study, and we will use the same information that we have to make us fit in other schools or in other branches of psychology. And it is divided into two major ones: pure psychology and applied psychology. And so pure psychology is all about the psychological principles and theories. And we have already mentioned some of the theories that brought about the growth of psychology. And so someone can just take one area of pure psychology and look at the theories. Even when you're doing your research, you can make a decision to look at the theories and critique the theories, bring in your own way of thinking, depending on what you understand from these theories. Because pure psychology suggests various methods and techniques for analysis. Remember, once you're studying psychology, you also got to look at how would I do research? How would I study more? If I'm doing a research in this area, what do I need to see? What do I need to do more in? What do I need to look at? The applied psychology, that is this one in applied psychology, it's all about what you've generated from pure psychology, you bring it to practice. Or what you've learned, all the psychological rules, principles, theories, you now bring them to real life situations. So you see, we talked about pure psychology. You can learn psychology just as psychology, just as a subject. It's not about practice. Just learning psychology, pure psychology, understanding the theories and how psychology is all about. Then when you come to applied psychology, it's about how do I use what I learned in pure psychology and ensure I'm using it in real practical life situations. And that is where we are. You and I, we want to use it in real life practical situations. Oh, now we'll see how we're going to apply this. You'll find this is a lot of theory work, but when we look at it keenly, it reminds us of where we are coming from and where we are going to, and all the other areas that we can study. Nani nyingi. There are many areas that we can study. We can do gender psychology. We can do abnormal psychology. We can do social psychology. All that what we can learn. And we can apply them in educational psychology, clinical psychology, industrial psychology, legal psychology, military psychology, political psychology. Sisi ni walimu. Educational psychology is what we will use mostly. That is where we will apply what we will be doing. And so when it comes to the general psychology, it's all about the rules and principles of the theories, or what we started with, the study of behavior of normal human beings, normal adults. That is what is all about general psychology. And this is what we are doing now, just like general psychology and understanding what psychology is all about. Then we will have an area, we will even have a topic on abnormal psychology. And remember, I told you yesterday the reason as to why we will want to look at abnormal psychology. And this is all about looking at individuals who are unusual. Unusual in quotes. It's unusual in quotes, because we'll be looking at mental disorders, their causes and treatment. And remember, these disorders can be as small as something that you are not able to see. You cannot even see from the open behavior that you're getting. But there's something that tells you this is not normal, this is not working as what you would expect. We can also look at psychology, social psychology, when we look at the society, the group behavior, the interrelationship between people. How are people interacting socially with each other? What are your attitudes? What are your beliefs? What is it about crowd behavior? How do people behave in a crowd? How do people behave? Because the way you behave in a crowd is not the way you behave when you are alone. Because when you look at social psychology, it's about my relationship with other people. How am I able to deal with the public opinion, with other people, as opposed to when I am alone? What are the attitudes that we hold about people? What are the stereotypes that we hold about people? All that is about social psychology. What are our beliefs? Our beliefs in people, our beliefs in God, our beliefs in a superpower. How is it? And where do we find people when they're in a group, they are able to do a lot, air their views, shout a lot? And when you're alone, you can't try that. So we'll be looking at that. We'll be looking at more of how we can apply social psychology in our work. This one will not do much about it. We will not learn a lot about physiological psychology. We'll not be looking at we'll not be explaining about the biological and the physiological basis of our behavior, but we'll do it when we reach some areas. There's some areas that we'll need to look at the physiological basis of our behavior. When you'll be looking at adolescence and child development, there'll be a lot of physiological psychology. We'll also look at even at the nervous system when we are looking at them, how they have grown. Even in abnormal psychology, we also bring in that area. We will not look at parapsychology, but you can look at it. It deals with the extrasensory perceptions, causes of rebirth. You know, what people believe. We'll not do a lot about this, but it's an area one can study. We'll not be looking at what people, what is it that people do out there? What do they believe in? We will not be looking at that area, but that area one can study. Geopsychology, that is, it describes the relationship of physical environment, etc. We will not look at that, but an area that one can get interested in. We are teachers. And many of us as teachers, we didn't know how to branch. Developmental psychology, we will do that. That one we'll look at. It will inform a lot about what we do. And so it's an area that one can pick and run with it. Just do developmental psychology alone, and you'll see a lot about what happens in a human being's lifespan. And we'll be looking at human behavior as one grows. That's a whole topic that we'll be looking at, and we'll be seeing how does our growth keep on affecting our behavior. We will look at many proponents who have divided the age of a person depending on how old are you now, at age 1, how do you behave, at age 10, how do you behave, at age 16, now, we'll be looking at all that because it will help us in child psychology and adolescence. We have a topic on child and adolescence counseling, and we'll use a lot of developmental psychology in that. Experimental psychology is also another branch that one can do, where we carry out a study using scientific methods. Because there are so many goals of psychology, and you'll see them in our notes. When you get to the notes, you'll see the goals of psychology, and you see it is a science. And when we talk of something as a science, it means we can study it as an experiment. We can use experiments in carrying out a study using scientific methods. And there are many areas that we can study, but we're not going to do this because it will be taking us to our research, and remember our research, we said it is action research, inquiry-based. You can also do educational psychology, and this one we use a lot of it in our schools. There are many areas that one can study in psychology. There is also counseling, so the psychological counseling as a study of psychology that you still fit in somewhere. Educational psychology is a very rich area, and it tells you apply the principles and theories in educational situations. And that is my area of study, educational psychology. Reason being, I'm a teacher. And so all that I do rotates around the child. Even if I have done a course in counseling, I felt that educational psychology speaks to me as a teacher. And so I'm able now to look at the education system, the situations that is able to apply the theories and techniques that I have learned. And so it's all about improving the aspect of teaching and learning as a process. But what I said at the beginning, when we do all these, if you look at all these branches of psychology, you find the methodology of study is the same. And we borrow a lot from all these branches of psychology to enrich our course of guidance and counseling. Another very critical area that I would say anyone who is interested in going further in psychology can do clinical psychology. And you'll understand more about the mental illness, abnormal behavior, and the treatment and effective adjustment that is required of a person in the society. You people, let us explore. Let us explore many areas of what we can do. And if you're still a student, if you are young, you're not like you're not facing retirement soon, you still can see, now that I've done guidance and counseling, what area would I want to work on? Would you want to, if you want to still continue as a counselor, there are still more courses that we can do, because education never comes to an end. Remember, we said yesterday, we are all in the process. Bado tunaendelea. It never comes to an end. We are all in the process of being. We have industrial psychology, an area that uses that looks at the human behavior in relation to the individual environment. And when you're working in industries, it is all about how do we apply these principles in our organizations, in our place of work, in hiring people, in everything. That is, it talks a lot about the area of employees in an organization. When you look at these, and then you look at educational psychology, you'll see, you can see that which one would I want? Would I want educational psychology? Would I do clinical psychology? Would I do industrial psychology? It all depends on your area of focus and what you want to do. Legal, it fits very well the people in the legal field, and it's all about them understanding. Even with all these, even if it is called legal psychology, the thing that is different from all the others is it will have an area that deals more with the law and what the law says and what is expected of the law and how you're supposed to help people in all, depending on where they are. But you'll see that it is still part of what we will be doing. It's only when you want to go further to where you want to be. Military psychology is a course you can take, same thing. It's about the people you are dealing with, the military, and what is it that you want. Political psychology, these principles, how we use them when studying political and political gain. It's all about which area would you want to. Why am I bringing this at this time? Because we are studying. And as we study, we can do a lot. We have decided we are counselors. As a counselor, if I want to go further, what else would I want to do? If I want to specialize, which other area would I want to specialize in? And don't forget counseling, psychology, guidance and counseling is also an area that is fully fledged, and those courses are there, and you can still do that and gain a lot of work. Colleagues, today I've been a newscaster, a radio newscaster, who reads notes, and because I said this is theory, very dry, but when we get to the virtual campus, you will find it is divided into smaller bits. You might find that maybe some of the notes in the kuongeza and nimeongeza, they are not there. When the time reaches and we feel that we need to add more, we will still add more from what I have talked about, from the stories I have given. I just wanted to bring it to your attention that this is an area that we can study. Psychology is very interesting. And now it gives us a basis. When you're moving now on towards counseling, it has already given us a basis of where counseling is coming from, where it is anchored, and all the growth of what has happened, and how we feel we reach somewhere, and we are able to branch. We are able to branch out. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for your attendance. It is time for your input. This was just part of session 1. We will complete tomorrow. The one that's remaining for introduction to psychology for tomorrow is a very short one. So we will be in a position to finish it early tomorrow. And then from there, we tell ourselves, how are we moving on? Are we gaining anything? Is this a growth of psychology helping us understand where we are coming from as counselors, where we are going to as counselors, or what we are expected to do as counselors? I am seeing the link is there. Joanne Kilinge is saying it's not working. Sam, check whether it is working so that we are able to register. Yesterday, some people said they were not able to register. Ilikata. Sometimes we can even use the picture itself here. We can look at the picture and use the picture with the names. It works. So check, Munuve angalia whether it is working or it is not working. Umeionaje Munuve? Umeangalia?
Let me activate it.
Activate it, please, so that now we are able to register. Colleagues, this is your time to bring in your input before we close the class. And we say tukutane kesho, but from next week we'll only be meeting 2 days in a week. After the first module, we will lessen the times of meeting because we'll still be looking forward to the face-to-face. The face-to-face meeting, I think face-to-face meeting can only happen when schools close down. It can only happen when it is during our holidays, so it is okay. We will see what to do. Visit the virtual campus, see whether you are able to access even the introduction peke yake, or even the learning outcomes peke yake. If you are able to access that, you will know you have you are in a position to be able to do it. Joanne is wondering why we cannot start at 6. Joanne, we will see the modalities of that, whether it is possible to be starting at 6. We will see what will happen. Remember, we said all that we have said is not carved on stone. We can. Is it working?
No, it's okay.
Sawa. Colleagues, the link is working. Etiana from Turkana is saying kuna problem ya link. Etiana, we will see you discuss this. You have my number. Nipe feedback. We see how we can assist. Remember, we said we are leaving no one behind. We are working together. We have started together. We are going to be together. What I was talking about in the introduction of psychology, once you get to the Kemi Virtual Campus, you'll start accessing these notes. You'll start getting something. These are the ones I was using are just teaching notes. Otherwise, the notes are there and nyingi. You still get something. You still be able to move on. And also your work. Do your jitafutie zako soma. It is easier for you to do more from what you can do on your own. So colleagues, swali lolote lile or anything that I can read from the chat, if there's much. Jioni njema, niliwaambia even if we said the class is setting at 7:30, no, it's not cast on stone. We all need a short break, but we put it up to 7:30 so that if there's an issue we need to talk about, especially the ICT issues, we can talk about them before we reach there. Well, someone is wondering whether the lesson can start at 7. Oh, it might be almost next to impossible, but
yes, Doctor, I can see someone is requesting if we can post the recordings of the session. Yeah, we will post on the WhatsApp group. The WhatsApp group will post the recording.
Yes, some after you clean them up. You know, there's some stories that come in that are not meaningful. You clean up and then you put them on the
true.
Okay. So colleagues, thank you so much. Thank you for being there. Thank you for joining me. I am still saying the journey, we will walk this journey together. And I am still saying next week on Friday, I will clean the WhatsApp wall so that we see who is with us, who is not with us. So allow me to do that cleaning. next week on Friday, and who is with us depends on malipo. Na tulisema tuwe kila mtu amefikisha 5,000. Ndio from there to give another deadline. Tulitaka mwanzo, and this is the only way I'm able to tell management we are good. We are good. We can move on now. So colleagues, good evening. Thank you so much. A prayer from any one of us. Eunice Emily, tuombe. Sorry. Eunice Emily.
Yes. Tuamini na tuombe. Kwa jina la Baba, la Mwana na la Roho Mtakatifu. Amen. Our loving God, we want to thank you this evening, participants in today's lessons. Glory, because of our teacher who is guiding us through these sessions and all her colleagues. Our loving God, may you be with us, set as your Holy Spirit to guide us in each and everything that we'll go through. For it is in Jesus' name I pray and believe.
Amen.
Amen, amen, and thank you so much. Immaculate, naona kuna kitu nataka kusema. Immaculate Gitoga.
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening, Immaculate. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Mimi nilikuwa naomba kusema hivi daktari, tukija kila mtu kupeana maoni yake ya ule wakati anataka tuanze, it is us who are supposed to fit ourselves in that program. Because if we keep saying somebody wants we start at 6, another one wants we start at 7, I may wish to request all the teachers in this program, let us fit in the timetable that was given, because there are only 2 days in a week.
Yes.
Then we try to reorganize ourselves so that all of us, we can fit as per that program, because it cannot cater for all our needs.
Thank you so much, Immaculate. You have answered for me. I wanted to say that, but sometimes you answer it and it looks like you're so firm. It's good. We let us remain with the time that has been given by management. Then we will see maybe the next semester we can change and see what is it that is expected of us.
Then the other question, the other question I wanted to ask.
Yes.
Is about the 15 sessions that they are supposed to be handled by a counselor.
Yes.
Is the counselor going to write a report for every session, or will just write a report after we do all the sessions?
After you do all the sessions, just a report of saying so and so was my client and attended, fulfilled the 15 sessions of therapy that are required. Hatutaki kujua mliongea nini.
Okay, thank you so much.
Just that. I'm seeing someone else there. Oh, sorry, Immaculate. Sasa ona watu, the people who don't listen. Hi, Immaculate, Maliza.
Just to ask, how will you be able to know that I was attended by a qualified counselor?
We will only require the name of the
counselor. Yeah.
We will only get the name from the counselor and their qualifications. There are ways of verifying.
Oh, okay.
There are ways of verifying that.
Okay, thank you.
Sawa. Thank you, Immaculate. Good night, dear. Real me, please unmute and you start with by giving me your name. Sababu hilo ni jina la simu. Oh, I'm your dorm corner. So colleagues, good evening. Fill that form. Thank you so much. Have a good night. I am still excited about the learning, and I'm telling myself by the time we are finishing this, I will be telling myself better stories. Tell yourself the same thing, that we'll be telling ourselves the better stories. People asking about the virtual campus. I am happy you are asking, but remember we said, get to the wall. Talk to that wall and look for Aquila. Look for Elvis, look for Munuve, and they will guide you. They will guide you. You will never get lost. They'll guide you. Thank you so much. Munuve, thank you so much for hosting us and being there for us. Thank you so much. Good evening and good night, everyone.
Good night too.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.